Just last weekend, we got to see 8 pro teams face each other in the first ever Smite 2 LAN. I've counted up all of the picks and bans from this event to bring you a definitive Smite 2 tier list based on what the pros are playing. Keep in mind that they were playing on the previous patch, so there may have been some balance changes since then, but honestly the meta hasn't shifted much. Let's start by defining our tiers. These 5 gods at the bottom weren't able to be played because Aphrodite, Medusa, and Pele hadn't released yet, and Nuwa and Thor were disabled due to a bug. But at the end, I will tell you where I would rank these gods based on my opinion. At the very top, we have SS tier. These gods were picked or banned in nearly every match at LAN. Below that is S, with other high priority options. A tier characters were also played often, but not as much as the ones in S. B consists of picks seen in only a few matches, and the gods that will go in C tier actually got 0 play throughout the entire event. Starting off at the top, we have Sobek. This god was the only character that was picked or banned in every single game at LAN. He's super tanky, has great CC, anti-heal, and an execute. He also had a stupid high win rate, so yeah, undeniably the best god in the game right now. Right next to him, we have the other top support, which is Yemoja. If you've been playing Smite 2, you may not have seen much Yemoja in pubs, but historically she has always been a high priority in pro play, and this LAN was no exception. She was picked or banned in 31 out of 33 total games. Poseidon, another top god at this event, with only 2 games where he wasn't picked or banned. He kind of forces the enemy carries to pick up Aegis, and overall he just farms well and has a ton of pressure compared to the other mages. Loki was also very high priority, with way more total games than any other jungler. He just has so much damage, and since you can only pick up 1 relic, it's really hard to stop him from getting at least 1 pick late game. Kernanos and Jingwei were the top 2 ADCs we saw played. It was basically just Kernanos versus Jingwei every match with very little deviation, so it's safe to say that these are the top 2 hunters by far. Moving down to S tier, we saw a ton of Amaterasu getting played in the solo, and a few times in the jungle. She just brings a lot to the table between the objective shred, and her ultimate is very strong as well. Chalk was also highly valued, especially by the EMEA teams. In solo lane, he's got sustain, brings good lane pressure, and a strong ult for teamfights. We even got to see a few teams running him in the jungle, albeit not with much success. Odin was one of the most banned gods at LAN. A lot of the meta gods don't have a way to get over the cage, and it kind of forces the enemy into going shell. We saw him mostly get played in the jungle, and he just brings a lot to the teamfight, especially if you've got like a Zeus or a Cupid on your team. Next up, we have Hades. We saw some crazy plays at this event from players going full damage with Helm of Darkness on this god. In multiple games, a Hades was able to invis into the backline, dealing massive damage and just causing a ton of disruption in teamfights. It's a really hilarious strat, and it seems super strong, so I expect we'll be seeing a lot more Hades going forward. Ymir was another one of the top supports at this event. He wasn't played as much as Sobek or Yemoja, but he did have really good win rates, and I think a lot of that comes down to just walls being really strong right now. Zeus was picked up a lot, usually alongside Odin or some of the other wall gods. He just deals so much damage, and it can be really hard to dive him, especially with the extra self-peel he's got now. Last up for S tier is Fenrir. Fen's really great for early pressure and forcing the enemy into going beads. He also has a great matchup into the other top jungler, which was Loki, so it's no surprise he got played so much. At the top of A tier, we've got Hecate. I'm honestly surprised we didn't see her played more because her ult just seems so strong to me, but she was still the 3rd most played mid laner. Benny Q made her look really good, so I expect once people get more time to practice her, there will be a lot more Hecates running around. Cupid was another ADC that got picked up quite a bit. I think healing is really strong right now, and they gave him some crazy buffs, so it's no surprise that people were picking him when they weren't locking Kernanos or Jingwei. The Morrigan is actually the only god that was banned more than it was played, which tells me that some of these teams are scared to face her, but don't really feel like picking it over any of the other mid laners. Baron Samedi was played quite a bit, mostly by FinoK's team, although we did see a few other players picking it up. He's got great matchups into a lot of the low mobility gods, and his healing is really strong as well. Nemesis was picked in 10 out of the 33 total games, and I'm kind of surprised we didn't see a little bit more Nem. Her 1v1 is really strong, and she also brings that tank shred to the table with her ultimate, but she is a little bit slower than the other junglers. She needs a few items to get online, so it makes sense that the teams were just going for stuff that has a little bit more pressure. Athena actually had a 100% win rate in the jungle, winning 5 out of the 5 games she was played. She got banned a couple times as well, and she's just got access to a really strong CC as well as that global ultimate, so maybe Athena will become a top jungler for some of these teams going forward. Now onto the B tier. These gods are much more niche than anything above them, and they might still have a place in certain matchups or team comps. It seems like they are just outclassed by the other characters in their role, which doesn't necessarily mean they're bad, you just have better options. Ra was only picked up 6 times, and I do think he has some potential between his healing and objective secure, but he really doesn't have as much pressure or damage as the other mid laners, so it's a bit hard for him to compete, especially with all the Sobex and wall characters running around. Anubis was picked up a couple times as well, and he's got the same issues he always has in comp, where you can kind of just focus him hard and make it so he's unable to play. I think he was actually played more in solo than in mid, and he did manage to pick up a couple wins there, so who knows. Kukulkan actually wasn't picked at all until the very last day, where he was played in 5 out of 8 matches. Sap 7 made this character look really strong, and I think he shines most when you've got a team comp with a lot of CC and area denial. Not to mention he's got one of the best objective secures in the game, so yeah, definitely some potential to see more Kukulkan in the future. Thanatos wasn't played very much at all. The global execute is still good, and he does move around really fast, but his kit just doesn't really compete with the other meta junglers. Unless you're Rat Milk, then I guess you can do whatever you want. Bacchus was picked in 4 games and lost every single one of them. I'm not sure why this god is so weak right now because he's really tanky and does decent damage, but I think he's just outclassed by the other supports at the moment. Anhur was only played in 2 games, but he did win both of them. He's a really safe god and brings good lane pressure as well, so I'm honestly surprised we didn't see more of him. Bellona also saw barely any play. Her kit just doesn't really bring a lot to the table compared to the other front lines, but I do think she's got okay lane pressure and still does a good job countering auto attack gods. Danzaburou got picked twice, and I'm pretty sure at least one of those was actually a jungle game. His kit's not super strong in general, but his ult is definitely good if you're drafting a full dive team. Susano seems weak compared to the other junglers. He's got good mobility and a strong ultimate, but I think his numbers are just too low or something because he barely got played at all. Hercules was criminally underplayed in my opinion, and we only saw him in 1 match. Maybe he just suffers the same problem as a lot of these other B tier gods where there's just better options, but still, he's tanky, does damage, and has good CC, so I think he's a little bit underrated. Khepri also only got played a single time. This god just can't compete with the pressure that other supports bring, and it's a very frontline heavy meta, so Khepri doesn't really have a place right now. Neith got played once as well, and I do think this god is decent, she's pretty safe and has that global ult to help your jungler's gank potential, but her damage doesn't really compete with the other ADCs or mid laners right now, so she just gets outclassed. And finally, we are at C tier. These 4 gods didn't get played a single time throughout the entire LAN. I'm kind of surprised we didn't see at least 1 game from Izanami or Sol to try and contest duo pressure, but Mordred and Ares are trash, so that's no shocker. Mordred ate a lot of nerfs, and Ares ult is too weak when multiple people are buying AoE beads every game. Again, these last 5 gods didn't get to see any play at LAN since they were unavailable, but I'll just briefly give you my thoughts on them. Aphrodite is busted. I'm going to put her in S tier because I have no doubt she would have been picked a lot, but I don't think she's quite as strong as Sobek or Yamoja. Medusa, in my opinion, would probably go in SS. I think she can easily contest Kern and Jingwei in the duo lane, and her ult just does so much damage in teamfights. Now, I'm definitely biased, but I also think Pele would go in SS. She's just got so much pressure, nobody can really fight her early game, and her ult just absolutely nukes the backline. Nuwa should go in S in my opinion. She's not quite Poseidon tier, but it's just so annoying to face when she hits your whole team for 800 or more late game. Finally, Thor, I'm also going to put in S. He could maybe even go in SS, because I do think he can compete with Loki and Pele. He's just got great CC and damage, as well as that global ultimate, which creates a lot of pressure on the map. It's a shame Thor was bugged, because I really wanted to see what the pros could do with them. And that's it. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share. Thanks for watching. See ya.